Yeah, midterms are finally over. That's probably a good reason why we haven't had an episode in over a week now, which is strange because the first couple episodes all came within a couple weeks.
Came in, steady one after the other, and then this week we
had a long pause.
But not too long, I don't think.
I think it's looking okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But yeah, no, midterms were really something awful this time. Between, the worst had to have been psychology, and not for the fact that I didn't do well on it. We received the exam back, and I did perfectly fine. But the worst part of it was going over the exam in class.
Yeah, that's always the bad thing.
There's a girl in my psychology class who I've had in the previous class before, and if she's watching, you'll know who you are.
Maybe she
don't like you. I actually hate you with a passion. But anyway, she missed the exam. And the way this professor works is there's 4 exams throughout the year, and then the 5th one, which is the final. If you've taken all 4 and you've done well, you don't have to take the final. So she missed this one. And the professor's giving out the exams. She's sitting there. We start going over the questions. And we get to about the 3rd or 4th question in the exam. And she raises her hand and says that the professor's answer is incorrect. She hasn't taken this exam.
Why would
she doesn't have a copy of it in front of her. But she's professing that the answer was incorrect. So the professor continues on after sort of talking with this girl for 5 minutes. And they go on, and the professor says, if anyone took the exam, or didn't take the exam, come up to the front, and she was going to give them a copy of the exam so they can look on and know what they need to know for the final exam.
Yeah,
Because it's a cumulative exam. So we continue on, and then a couple of gentlemen have an issue with the question. And of course, she chimes in also again. And this happens again and again. And there becomes one question where the 3 of them, who were the only people in the whole class of probably 60 plus people who were having issues, then say that they believe the question should be thrown out of the exam because they thought that it was a trick question. You're in college. You shouldn't be tricked by a trick question. You should be smart. The question was about categories of a psychological disease. And then there were 3 possibilities for the category plus D, and the option was none of these. They believed that because the answer was D, none of these, it was a trick question, and therefore it should be thrown out. I got the question wrong myself, but I didn't hoot and holler about it. I just let it go.
And that's partially because afterwards you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly, because then I reread the question. Yeah.
Yeah, like I have a tendency to make questions that aren't trick questions into trick questions because I think too much about them.
So you missed the easy questions.
I wind up missing the easy questions, but I don't hoot and holler. I just sit there and sound
exactly, because you got the question wrong.
That's me.
It's not the professor's fault.
No.
It's your own fault for getting it wrong. You didn't study it well enough. You didn't read the question properly. It's your fault. It's not the professor's fault. And these people are yelling at this poor woman, and I'm like, now I know why she comes into class bitter and angry every day. Because when you have to deal with this, it's understandable that you were going to be a bitter, angry woman.
She probably saw it coming.
She did. She must have, because the first exam it sort of happened a little bit, but this time it got worse, and I can only imagine what the 3rd test is going to be like when we get that back.
Thank God thank God you won't have to come into class after the final, because classes will be over by then.
Yeah. She'll just start getting emails from those people. I don't think that question number 5 was worded correctly. Can you please throw it out of the exam? No.
I actually lucked out. In one of my classes, the professor is notorious for being difficult, but everybody loves him anyway. He actually cut us some slack in the last test. Like, I did okay. I got like an 82, which, considering it's this particular professor's class, is very good. And, there were people who did better, and there were people who did worse than I did. But but you know, we were going over the test, you know, a lot of us picked the wrong answer in a couple of these, and we're like, well, the reason why we thought this was because of such and such. Like a big one is the difference between it, like, is this an experiment or a non-experiment? And it's based on whether or not you can manipulate the independent variable. And if the independent variable is things like height, some people think in their head, well, you can give a person high heels and that changes their height, but then we would be wrong. And that's always a big deal, and there was a couple of questions that were like that, but he actually like gave them to us. If you picked B, okay, even though B is not the right answer, I'll give it to you. And then on top of that, which is unheard of for this professor, he, on top of giving us, you know, a little slack on a couple of questions, gave us 9 extra points on the test.
Well, maybe he's getting older and a little senile.
He really likes this class too. I mean, he's been saying, you know, he told us, you know, this class is pretty cool, we're chatty, you actually know what we're doing.
Which is a professor's dream, is to have class that actually talks.
Well, yeah, and plus it's a seminar, so we're supposed to be talking back and forth. Lecture, they're talking at you. Seminar, you're talking to them as well. So, but it's just, I was surprised.
Yeah. I'm just glad that midterms are all done. Except for one for me.
Oh, which class?
My history of novels. My professor, dear sweet woman that she is going away. This week, so you don't have class at all this week. And then next week, we still have to finish the book that she wanted to get over for the midterm, that she wanted to put on the midterm.
Now, have you been reading these books?
Then we have spring break. And then, so we're not going to have this midterm exam until, I don't know, April like 20th. Which is basically the final at that point. So I don't know what she's thinking. No, I haven't been reading the books. But we've been watching the films in class, so I feel like that counts. As long as I know the characters' names, is all that matters.
Oh yeah, as long as you know who the characters are,
And
what
what
they've
they
done, and, you know, occasionally spit out what the professor's been saying in class back to her.
Well, that doesn't work on her exams.
No, it doesn't?
No, because she takes passages from the novels, and then she puts those into the test, and that's what she asks you, like, who was speaking?
Oh, those. I had
Like our professor used to do.
Shakespeare.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, he would give you a passage and you would have to tell him who was speaking, what they were referring to.
Who they were speaking to.
Who they were speaking to.
What act and scene this particular passage was from.
And for the most part, I would guess. And like there was one time I didn't read one of the play, but it was like an obscure passage, and through a process of elimination, like, okay, it's not Othello, it's not Macbeth, it's gotta be Much Ado About Nothing. And I got it right based on that. Like, well, it's too happy to be Othello.
You know, I don't think that I passed that class, but I still managed to be plus in it. I don't know why. Well, his grading was insane. People who shouldn't have passed that class got A, or people who got C's in that class got A's. It was insane. I don't know what happened, but we don't like to talk about it anymore. So we're just going to leave that one go.
I earned my A's.
Yes. So, all right, everybody.
I know what you mean.
We'll be right back with a couple more things in just a minute.